All right, good day to all my listeners. This is Brian again, your host for Inspiring Educators. And now, I'm very excited because this would be an exciting episode. Actually, I'm gonna be talking to the man who introduced Anchor app, the podcasting thing. So, let's all welcome Josh Gaston. Josh, it's really exciting to talk to you. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, it's we've kind of been discussing this for a while, so I'm glad that we finally made this happen, and I'm here helping you with this. So
finally, finally, just like what I've told to all my listeners, you're the man who introduced podcasting. And you're the man who introduced this very wonderful app. And I would say without your ideas, this podcasting wouldn't happen. So, let's get going with my very first question. So, me and all the listeners wants to know, who is Josh Gaston?
Well, I am an English educator and I guess more recently consultant in some ways. And I'm from the United States, born and raised in Kansas, which is a state in the very center of the United States. And I've been teaching English mostly abroad in other countries for the last 10 years. And I've been trying to figure out this whole teaching online thing. It's the first time that I was teaching online or, presenting or giving workshops online has been within the last 6 and 7 months during quarantine, during the pandemic. So despite having, some knowledge in using technology and integrating technology into my classroom, it's been challenging in some ways to consider how to approach and how to conceptualize teaching online for the first time in the last half of the year.
Wow, that's something new. I was amazed because I thought that you've been mastering this, the applications, the tools that you're using, but coming from you that you've just been, doing this for the past 6 or 7 months, right?
Yeah, so, I've, for a long time, I've tried to integrate technology into the classroom, but it's always been a part of the face-to-face learning. So, I've asked my students to write blogs, right? I've had students in the past create their own blogs, but we were still meeting in the class. We were still meeting face-to-face. So holding lessons and facilitating, managing classes online, that is the new experience for me. So I have to think about, okay, how am I doing this and how is technology, how are these apps going to be a part of that new online teaching experience?
All right. That's great to hear because, the way you've taught the applications as if you've been doing this for your whole life. So that's not just a compliment because, most of your students in our, digital literacy class were really amazed on how you and our fellow Armin does it. So really impressed with your, teaching skills already. But let's go on to the second question, okay? So, of all the jobs that we have in this world, so tell us, how did you become an educator? What's the journey, or how did your journey end up into this very noble job?
So I was an English literature major when I was an undergraduate student. And I didn't know exactly, I've always been interested in literature. I loved reading. I loved thinking about literature. But I didn't know how I was going to practically apply those skills and knowledge that I had developed as an English literature major to the professional world. And so I was in one of my English literature courses at university, and we had a guest speaker come, and they said, my university had this program, and this person was in charge of the program, where recent graduates could go abroad and teach English in China. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. I mean, in addition to being interested in English literature and literature in general, I'm also interested in other cultures and learning about other cultures. That sounds like a great opportunity. So I went to China, I applied to that program, I got accepted into that program, and I was sent to China after I graduated. I spent a year there teaching English, and I really enjoyed it. And I still wasn't totally convinced that that's what I wanted to do, but I did like it. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try that again. And I went to Chile in South America, and I spent a year there teaching English, business English, so kind of ESP, to business professionals. And that's when I realized that, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the path that I want to take.
That's amazing. Why did I say it's amazing? Because you started with literature, and as we all know, this is a very wide, or it has a lots of subtopics, and then suddenly opportunity to share what you really want to do comes out. And those students that you had in China were really lucky, because your passion is starting to build up, and then they are the first one who could experience how are you gonna be doing what you really love. And then as you move forward, just like you've shared, when you went to Chile, and then you thought ESP, to be exact, English for business, right? Yeah, that's the time that you realize that that's the calling, as what I could say. There's this calling that made you decide, and look where are you now. You are really sharing not just your skills, but your passion. So it's really a wonderful journey.
Well, what's funny is that I look back now. I look back now on the way that I was teaching my students in China, and I had no idea what I was doing, because I had never been formally trained in education. Right, I was not an education major, and so I was just finding resources on the internet and asking my friends who were education majors and who were actually trained teachers, like, what should I be doing? Like, what do I do? And so I think it's that kind of, we have a phrase in English, trial by fire, where you are just kind of thrown into something and you learn by doing it. And I felt like that's the way that I developed my teaching practice, is just kind of being thrown into the fire and figuring it out for myself, but also being resourceful and getting suggestions from my friends who were education majors, but also finding resources on the internet that could help me develop that teaching practice. So.
And I think the very first time that we've taught would be the most memorable one. Something that you would keep on sharing up until you've been in this education industry for more than a year or two. So that the very first time that you walk into the classroom was the most memorable one. And I'm pretty sure that it was really a memorable one, right?
Yeah, well, the story that I always tell people and that I often think about is when I arrived in China and I met with the head of the English department at the university in China. We sat down with her and I said, okay, what would you like me to do? Like, what approach would you like me to take? What resources do you have? What textbooks do you have? And she just said to me, we want you to make the students speak English.
Wow.
And that's the only advice that she gave me. That's the only information, no resources, no textbooks, nothing. We want you to make the students speak English. And so I said, okay, I can work with that. So, yeah, not a lot of support there.
But really challenging. But I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that those was it in junior college? What level was it, if I may ask?
Universities. So it was kind of the equivalent to what we have, at least in the United States, liberal arts universities, where there are many different subjects, and you kind of take a wide variety of courses.
I see. Well, that's really interesting, and I was hoping that me, because like what I've shared in our group, I was also an ESL teacher for a Chinese company, but I haven't traveled there, so I'm also excited, to I don't know if this is the right word to showcase my talent, what I've
Yeah.
learned here, because I I see that there's still lots of things to be improved in there. Yeah, there are good Chinese speakers using the English language, but still, I would say that I've been trained. I've learned things that I can share in there. So maybe after this situation happens, which will follow up to my next question to you. So we've experienced this situation, this pandemic situation, not just here in the Philippines, not just there in the United States, but worldwide. Everyone experienced the difficulty on life itself. So, I would like to know, and all my listeners would like to know, how do you try to stay positive in your everyday life despite of all the challenges that this COVID-19 pandemic has gave to us?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think, well, first, I mean, I am very fortunate and grateful because I don't experience, I still have a job, right? I'm still teaching and I'm financially stable. I have a good network here in my hometown with friends and family. And so I feel very fortunate and grateful for having that sort of stability, because I know not everyone has those that kind of support or those kinds of resources, especially nowadays. So I mean, because so I have that support, which has really been helpful in managing this time. But I would say, for me, it's been trying to focus on making sure I'm mentally, physically, and emotionally healthy, and I try to stay healthy in those ways with different strategies. So, I try to exercise every day. I try to jog, I do yoga, with mental and emotional health. I try to stay positive. I reach out to friends if I'm feeling depressed. So I think just kind of being aware of your needs, being aware of your emotions when you're feeling down, and I think that's the biggest thing. And really listening to yourself, listening to your thoughts, listening to your feelings, listening to your body, and taking action when something is going wrong.
Really great grouping that you made. Three words that stayed in my mind right now: awareness, listening, and also, taking actions. So, very important because not everyone, just like what you mentioned, has this, good internet, which is really number one. And then family members and friends that we can always talk with, even if they are far, because of the good internet. And then, financially stable, emotionally stable. Not everyone can be in that situation. So I would say that we are the lucky ones, because right now I would say that I am surrounded with friends and colleagues who are enriching my mind when it comes to education. So it's a good way of turning a bad day into a positive one by just doing those three things that you've shared. That's really amazing. All right, each of my guests has their own way, and I would say that those three things that you mentioned would be really helpful, not just to me as your listener right now and all my guests, but to all educators. So I would like them, I would be telling them those three things that you've just mentioned. And for my final question for this episode, the main goal and the part of the title itself. So, how does Josh inspire his learners?
I think I would like to think that I inspire my learners with my passion, and that they can see that I put a lot of effort and energy into lessons. I put a lot of effort and energy into responding to them and trying to respond to them in a timely manner, giving them feedback, and just trying to be also present for them. So listen to them. I try to be a very active listener to them in class, especially when they give opinions and share their thoughts. And I'd also say I've had students in the past come up to me or contact me with personal issues that aren't directly related to to academics, to our class together. And so a lot of students have, I think, talked to me outside of class as if I'm their counselor.
Yeah.
And I accept that, because it's possible that they don't have other people in their lives who they are willing or that they feel comfortable communicating those kinds of problems with. So I just try to be present, and I try to be available to students, and I try to show them that I'm passionate about the subject, but also that I care about them and their needs.
Marvelous. It's really marvelous because, we're not just here to give them academic ideas, lessons, because books were also created. Nowadays, we have ebooks. We even have technology such as Google that would help them. But what I love on how you inspire your students is that you're a good listener, just like what you mentioned. Because I would say that a teacher who is smart but cannot listen is not a teacher at all. A teacher must have this mind, heart, and soul for his students. So that's really amazing. We became serious whenever I go to, I got seriousness whenever this part of the podcast happens because, I try to relate myself. And I never failed to relate it because I would say that all the qualities that all my guests has shared, I'm trying to do it. Even if I'm just here in this industry for a very few years, but still, I'm very thankful that I can practice it and I can hear ideas, thoughts, and very wonderful works from all the guests that I have. So thank you. Thank you so much for that last part that you gave on how you inspire your learners. And now, my favorite part, okay? So, I know you also have your own podcast, you have your own advocacies, and maybe you could also give last thoughts to all the listeners. So, Josh, my podcast floor is all yours. Go for it.
So if I could plug my podcast is called Quarantine Teaching. So it's a mix of quarantine and teaching in one word, and it's the subtitle is reconciling change in education during the age of COVID-19. So what I do in my podcast is I interview different students and educators from around the world just to find out what challenges they're facing in this new learning environment, I guess you could say. And how they're dealing with those challenges and hopefully overcoming those challenges. So I've had some really interesting conversations with guests from South Korea to Uzbekistan. So
Amazing.
yeah. Um,
Amazing.
but yeah, I think I don't know. My final thoughts, my final advice is yeah, just be kind to yourself. I think we have because of this current situation where we don't maybe have normal schedules, and also we I have a tendency sometimes to be hard on myself and to have really high expectations for myself. But someone said, and I can't remember who this was, someone said that we should all be striving for a C plus right now. So that so these are not normal times. There's a lot happening in the world that is unfortunately negative. And so we are feeling a lot of stress in our own personal lives, but with what's happening in the world at large. And so I think it's important to realize that we shouldn't have such high expectations for ourselves because of all that. And as long as you are, getting up out of bed and you're doing something, like motivated to do something, then that's great. And I think for everyone, it sometimes just takes those little steps that make a difference. And if you're not doing the things that you wish you were doing, then maybe you can take smaller steps to achieve those things eventually. But yeah, basically just go easy on yourself, and just try to take care of yourself.
Thank you so much. Very nice words from a man who keeps on sharing what he learned in his journey in this educational path we're taking. So once again, Josh, I would like to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, from all my colleagues here. I could not mention all of them, but this would be really helpful because in these times, we cannot just rely on what we know. This is the time that we should rely with our family, with our friends, with our newfound colleagues, and just like what you mentioned, take it easy. If you cannot do it right now, do it slowly. For God will always tell you that this is the right time. Don't rush everything. So once again, Josh, thank you for being my guest here in Inspiring Educators, and we'll see you on tomorrow, all right?
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
All right, so that is another wonderful episode of Inspiring Educators, and I'm really thankful that I've interviewed the man who inspired me to start this podcast. So to all my listeners, I would like to thank you, and I'll be seeing you in my next episode. Have a good day. Let's listen to a wonderful message from one of our colleagues, Armin.
Hi Bryant, hi Josh, what a wonderful interview. I love all the lines and specifically the quote when Josh was saying trial by fire when he was working in China and basically was told, teach them how to speak. And that was his directions, no textbook or anything. And the other line about all of us achieving, if we can get a C plus, we'll be good. Because the truth is our expectations on ourselves during the quarantine time, during this COVID teaching has to transform because of the transformation of how education is functioning or dysfunctioning. And I just absolutely love the interview. I love the questions. I love the wonderful work you're doing, Bryant. Keep it up. Keep the flow. Keep the energy. You need to interview every single person in our digital literacy class because everyone would have great interviews for you. And keep it up. Great interview. Great job, Bryant and Josh.